Hey, it's Thomas Mulready from CoolCleveland.com, and we're here today at the Cleveland Institute of Music, and we're here with Sandra Shapiro, who's the interim dean of the Preparatory and Continuing Education Program here at CIM. Thanks for taking time today, Sandra.
Thanks for having me.
You've got a great program here that's really for kids of all ages. I don't know if people realize that. They think Cleveland Institute of Music is for college-age kids, but really it starts very young, doesn't it, with like Suzuki and Eurhythmics programs?
Oh, yeah.
Talk about some of the programs for the really young kids that you've got here.
We have a number of programs that are geared towards young people. We have our Suzuki program, as you mentioned, which we've had them start as early as 3.5.
Wow.
And we have our Eurhythmics program, which is also geared for the very young. In fact, it's probably one of the best ways to begin your child in music.
It's awesome. Our kids did this because it's really... they don't read music or even learn about an instrument. It's just about feeling the music, walking around, jumping.
Responding. That's really the key about early childhood education, is learning how to play with music.
Right. And then you get into some of your programs for the little bit older kids that are in high school. Talk about some of these programs.
Well, we have a very advanced program for young artists, we call them, the Young Artist Program.
Right.
And that is for our juniors and seniors in high school. It's very competitive, it's by audition only.
Right.
And we also have the Junior Young Artist Program, which is 7th grade through 10th grade. And then after that, they can go ahead into the Young Artist Program if they're admitted into that.
So they're learning things that are really advanced beyond what you're getting through private lessons, because you do also offer a lot of private lessons here.
You know, we have,
as well.
Not only that, we have so many offerings. We have our private lessons, we have theory, we have chamber music, we have large ensembles, and anybody can take also Eurhythmics. We have Eurhythmics for the very young. We also have them for age 12 and up.
Really?
Yes, so we have a lot of things that people don't know about in our continuing education for adults, or I say anyone 18 and over. 18 and over,
yes,
and they are able to take lessons as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So talk about your distance learning as well. I didn't realize that you had the video conferencing capabilities to actually hook up different classrooms and different people one-on-one.
Right. We are actually one of the leaders in distance learning. And we have the capability of having teachers give lessons long distance. Wow. So for instance, if you have somebody stuck in a remote area in Utah, well, they can have lessons with one of our faculty members here at the Institute if they're hooked up in a way that we can reach them.
And this is really high quality teleconferencing as well, where it's instantaneous, there's no delays, which is important with music, right?
Yeah.
So this is not something that they can get elsewhere, and these are the best quality teachers as well.
Yes, our artist faculty is something we're very proud of.
Talk about the ensembles that your students are involved in. You've got the beginning and prep string orchestra.
Right.
You have the youth string orchestra, chamber music.
Yeah.
How do they get involved in these programs?
Well, if they're interested, if they're wanting to experience music making with other young musicians such as themselves, then they have the opportunity to do so in a very intimate way, which would be chamber music. And we have a number of faculty that are on our chamber music roster, and it's a 10-week experience where we also offer a master class and a final performance.
Wow.
And then, of course, our large ensembles would be very important for our young instrumentalists, string players. All of our large ensembles are for string players. But we also have, one of our gems is the Cleveland Youth Wind Symphony.
Wow.
Which has over 340 members and draws from all over Northeast Ohio.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's one of the really premier, how shall I say, ensembles for bands in this area.
They don't need to be taking lessons or involved, they just simply try out for these programs.
Well, they need to be taking lessons with a private teacher.
With a teacher of some sort.
Yes, and then, but they don't need to be studying here at the Institute for that.
Right, because if they're at that level, they're definitely taking some lessons, right? They're not on their own at that level.
Right.
You also have some new programs in music theory as well that you guys are starting up. Talk about some of these, because this is really important that young kids learn theory early, and I can't believe how early you're really starting to teach kids
Yeah.
the music theory, because it really
Right.
benefits them throughout their career.
Right. Well, you know, music theory is just a fundamental aspect of becoming what I consider a well-rounded, complete musician. You need to understand from the ground up how something is put together. And so we begin with very early improvisation. And
That's
this is
interesting for
it's-
classical music. You think of that
Absolutely.
for jazz, but improv.
And yeah, you know, that's an astute observation because I also thought the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's not the case. In fact, we just had a fantastic workshop done by Alon Yavneh. He's a pianist who is classically trained, can sit down and play Schumann piano concerto for you 1 minute, and then the next minute he's off improvising in any style.
Wow.
And he was here giving a residency last weekend and involved all sectors of our school, from conservatory to our young artists.
Wow.
And they just loved it. Yeah.
So that's something that I don't know that was really stressed in the past with classical music, but it is more and more now, improvising, and it's sort of very directed improvising, isn't it?
Well, it's a skill, and it gives you a lot of freedom. It teaches you a lot about yourself, actually, and how you hear things, how you perceive music. Rhythmically, boy, teaches you a lot about what you know or don't know rhythmically,
Right.
how you hear key relationships, how you interact with others in a
Right.
very fundamental way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always good to stay in key while you're improvising, right?
Well, it's good to know where you're heading,
Where
right?
you're going. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're also teaching things like ear training, sight singing. I thought that was kind of
Yes.
interesting. We think of sight reading, but this is where they're going to actually be reading a piece of music for the first time and singing it.
Right, right. If you can sing it, you can play it.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah.
Composition, notation, keyboarding.
Yeah.
So these are great programs for kids. You have some specific ones for kids ages 8 to 12, which is the directed improv that we were talking about, and then a little older, 10 to 14, Beyond Fundamentals, it's
Yeah.
called. So I assume you're taking them beyond what they're learning from their teacher.
Yeah, right. You know, ultimately, in a perfect world, maybe musically, it would be so amazing to go back to the roots of what performers and composers always used to do, in that they were one and the same. The composer was the performer.
That's right.
And we've really kind of lost touch with that over the years. Performers became recreators. And so in a way, maybe it's sort of thinking back about our roots, where we came from, what we used to do, and perhaps trying to get back to that more. And again, it helps build up that understanding of music. If you
Right.
can create it, wow, think of the possibilities.
Makes you a much better interpreter
I
of
believe
other
so.
people's music,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is what you're called on to do. But so many people, they break and go into one direction or the other early.
Yes,
So they're
correct.
going into composition or they're going into
Right.
performance, but you're bringing the two back together.
It's an interesting idea, and it's one that our president, Joel Smirnoff, really has been promoting, which I think is a brilliant, wonderful idea.
Yeah. And then for the little older kids, 14 to 17, theory for the aspiring music major.
Yes.
That sounds, because at that age they're starting to make a decision about what they're going to
Right.
do and where they're going to go to
Right.
college. And they're at a very, very high level, I have to say, the kids that I've seen here, because our kids have taken here and we come to recitals here all the time.
Yeah.
It's a fabulous place. We're here right
Yeah.
outside of Mixon Hall.
Right.
But these kids are at a superhuman level. A lot of these kids, they're the best of the
Yeah.
best, aren't they? So
Yeah.
what is this all about? Getting them ready for college, really, right?
Well, yes, the idea being that if they really they complete all of these different stages of theory, chances are really good that they will either matriculate, if they go to a conservatory, ideally they will be able to matriculate already into the second year, especially if they come to CIM, because this is part of our program. That's the idea between our Young Artist program. If they matriculate from that, they are considered sophomores when they enter here.
So that'll save you some money.
Oh, yes.
As a parent, I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's a lot of incentive, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. Yourself, you're an award-winning pianist, a soloist. You've performed with the Chicago Symphony, New York Phil, the Cleveland Orchestra, the best orchestra in the world.
I'm a little spoiled, yes.
That's fabulous. What has that been like for you to have that kind of a career where you've traveled literally all around the world?
You know, I consider myself so fortunate because I feel like I've really experienced things that not a lot of people can say they've experienced, and I don't mean that in a bragging kind of a way. It's a gift for me, and something that I'm always thinking back and I'm grateful for. And doing this now, being dean of the preparatory, is a whole different side of me that I never thought I would have or do, and
Right.
I'm finding that I'm actually loving it because I'm able to bring my experience into what I'm doing and bring a very different perspective into this position. I also went to a very elite preparatory. I went to Juilliard Preparatory and matriculated into Juilliard Conservatory. And so I'm very familiar with that kind of an experience, a very intense environment.
Right.
My own kids go to the preparatory here, and so you know, I'm looking at it from every aspect,
Exactly.
from having done it myself, having my kids now do it, and now overseeing other people's children as
Sure.
well. So it's been very gratifying.
And the thing that I don't know that people realize, but the teachers that are here are also, just like you, the tops in the world. They perform with the Cleveland Orchestra, many of them, day in and day out, and that's the kind of experience you get when you are taking classes here.
Well, we have an artist faculty, and I love to brag about them.
Yeah.
They're great, and they give so much. They really do.
Well, Sandra, thank you so much for taking time.
Thank you.
It sounds like a great program. As a parent, I'm learning a lot, and it's great to know you've got all these programs. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Hey, it's Thomas Mulready from CoolCleveland.com. Have a great week in Cool Cleveland.